Episode 4 opens with Jinya walking Ofu home under the night sky. As they stroll, Ofu gently tells him that he seems like someone who could use some downtime in his life because he seems broody and pushes himself too hard. Jinya, after a brief pause, admits she might be right. He explains that he is living for one purpose, which he must fulfill. Still concerned, Ofu tells him that even though she doesn't know what his purpose is, he should still allow himself to relax once in a while because life is boring when you do nothing but pursue goals. Jinya, maintaining his usual stoic demeanor, replies calmly that he's sorry but he can't take her advice. Ofu understands and doesn't press further. She immediately gets distracted by a small patch of flowers blooming along the path. She asked Jinya if he knew the name of the flowers, and he replied that he didn't. She smiled softly and told him that they were winter daphnes, and they start budding in fall, then survive winter to bloom in spring. Jinya notes how strong the fragrance was, and she tells him winter daphnes were the harbingers of spring. They soon noticed another flower nearby, and this time Jinya recognized it. He identified it as chickweed, recalling how his friend from Kadono village used to boil it into a stomach remedy whenever she had eaten too many sweets. They arrived at Ofu's house and noticed the lights were still on. Her father had clearly waited up for her. Jinya remarked that it must be part of being a parent. Ofu, smiling, teased him by asking how he could explain his concern for her. Jinya replied simply, "It's a mystery." She laughed softly and thanked him for escorting her home, then turned to head inside. Just before she left, Jinya spoke up, asking her to teach him more about flowers, preferably when the sun was out. She smiled and agreed, and took her leave. At that moment, Mosuke reappeared beside him and remarked that she seemed like a nice lady. Jinya, slightly startled, turned to him surprised that Mosuke had followed them the entire way. With the moment past, the two refocused and decided to resume their investigation. Later that night, Mosuke and Jinya were seen resting quietly on a bridge, the air still and calm. Just as a girl passed by Jinya, a sudden blow struck Mosuke. He collapsed to the ground, blood spilling beneath him. Jinya instantly snapped to attention, his senses sharp. Then, from the darkness, the attacker revealed itself a towering, monstrous demon. The demon lunged at Jinya, but he swiftly dodged the strike. The girl shrieked in fear. Frozen in place, without taking his eyes off the demon, Jinya ordered her to stay still unless she preferred to die. In a flash, the demon shifted its focus and pounced again, this time aiming for the girl. Just as the demon was about to strike the girl, Mosuke in his invisible form rushed in and shoved her out of harm's way. Seizing the moment, Jinya launched a series of swift attacks against the demon, driving it back with precise strikes. After taking several hits, the demon let out a menacing growl before retreating into the darkness. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Still invisible, Mosuke told Jinya he would stay on the demon's trail, hoping to discover where it slept. Jinya cautioned him not to take any unnecessary risks. Mosuke assured him he'd keep his distance even if he found it, because he wasn't interested in dying. With that, he leaves. Still shaken, the girl called out to Jinya, asking him to help her up. As he approached, she looked at him with familiarity and said that his cold demeanor brought back memories, adding that she hoped he hadn't forgotten her. In that moment, Jinya realized who she was. The girl was Natsu, his adopted sister who was just returning home after making a delivery for her father. Before long, Natsu's aide Zenji arrived. Jinya explained that she had been attacked by the serial killer he'd been tracking, but reassured him that Natsu getting attacked was purely by chance. She had simply crossed paths with the demon at the wrong moment. Natsu asked Jinya how he'd been making a living all this time, and he told her he was still working as a demon-slaying Ronin, and if they ever needed his help, they could find him at the soba shop in Fukugawa, where he'd even offer them a discount. And since her escort had arrived, Jinya said he would take his leave, but just as he was about to walk away, Zenji called out to him if he was hunting demons. Zenji said, he should check out Teramachi and Yanaka because there was an old abandoned temple there. And people in the area had started hearing a woman's voice coming from the temple late at night. Rumors were spreading, and many believed it to be the work of demons. He added that the place was called Mizuho Temple. Meanwhile, Mosuke, still trailing the demon, lost sight of it in the shadows. But then he heard a woman's distant scream and instantly knew the demon was near. Looking up, he spotted the creature with an unconscious woman clutched in its claws. The sight triggered a painful memory. In a flash, memories surged, the image of Hatsu's lifeless body in the grass by the river when she was found. Rage surged through him, and without hesitation he sprang into motion, determined to hunt the demon down and end its life with his own hands. He tracked the demon all the way to Mizuho Temple. Cloaking himself in invisibility, Mosuke slipped inside. There, in the dim stillness of the abandoned shrine, he found the demon hunched over a lifeless body feeding. Between gruesome bites, it muttered about needing to return, its voice low and rasping, filled with urgency. Consumed by anger, Mosuke launched an attack, unable to hold himself back any longer. But the demon, sensing his bloodlust, reacted instantly, lashing out with a vicious slash. The blow struck deep, and Mosuke collapsed, fatally wounded. As his vision blurred, the demon turned away, leaving him behind to die in the darkness of the abandoned temple. Jinya finally arrived at Mizuho Temple only to find Mosuke mortally wounded, grief-stricken over his failure to avenge Hatsu, now certain she was killed by the demon. With his last strength, Mosuke handed Jinya his Kodono-forged sword, begging him to finish what he couldn't and avenge his wife. Jinya accepted the sword, but told Mosuke he wanted his power in return. Mosuke nodded without hesitation, saying that if Jinya could make use of it, then it was his to take. With those final words, Mosuke's form dissolved into mist, leaving only his will behind. Meanwhile, the demon pondered its own existence, remembering its birth, how it was driven by a relentless urge to kill men. Since then, it had wandered in constant search, though it didn't know what it was looking for. All it knew was that it needed to return home, a place it had never seen but somehow felt deep within. But one thing was certain, it couldn't return home in that form. That's why it consumed women. They held something its demonic body lacked, something it needed to become whole. While the demon was feeding, Jinya approached silently, hidden by the power he'd gained from Mosuke. A fierce battle broke out, but Jinya fought with precision and determination, eventually bringing the demon down. As it took its final breaths, Jinya made a quiet, ruthless decision. He decided to consume part of the demon, taking its power for himself. As Jinya absorbed the demon's power, a haunting truth was revealed. This demon was Hatsu. She hadn't been slain by a monster, but by two men from Edo, who preyed on innocent women, violated and left for dead. Her spirit, shattered by pain and rage, lost all memory of who she once was. And with that, she faded away into a quiet white mist, her torment finally at an end. The next day, Jinya returned to Mosuke's home and placed the last remaining belongings of both Mosuke and Hatsu side by side, letting them rest together in the place they once called home. The episode concludes with Jinya tracking down the two men responsible for Hatsu's suffering. With cold resolve, he hunts them through the shadows of Edo, delivering swift and final justice, avenging both Mosuke and Hatsu, and bringing their tragic story to a close. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.